Never quit.
Go hard, go tough, and see if you can get it done.
Kind of sounds like you never want to give up.
Being tough, being strong, being able to outlast everybody.
Whatever life throws at you, just deal with it and get tough.
I think it speaks to Pioneer Days, the reason we're here and have all these celebrations and are able to have rodeos and mix a little cowboy tough with it, and you get Salt Lake gritty. I like it.
Thank you for being here.
So good to be here and good to see everybody. A lot of familiar faces and people that I hope become familiar faces here before long.
All right. Newly minted and appointed CEO of Lucid Press.
That's right.
What is Lucid Press?
Excuse me. Lucid Press is a design and brand templating platform, and what that means is that we make it quick and easy for anyone in the world to create on-brand materials. And so it doesn't matter what your skill level is, if you've ever had any experience with professional design or that kind of thing, or graphic design. With Lucid Press, you can get in, you have amazing templates to work from, and then you can create great looking stuff, whether it's for print or for social media or that kind of thing. And we do that with a lot of the best businesses in the world.
Sounds good. Are you sure, even if there's no experience, like someone as bad as me could do it?
We actually think of you. We have a picture of you as we build the product, and we say, if this guy can do it, then we'll be okay. No, the truth is that actually there are so many people who are on the front lines of businesses, and there's a constant demand on them to create more content and more personalized content. And so it's really hard for them to keep up with it. If you say you're a salesperson, and now you've got to do another customized piece, and you hear from the marketing department it'll take 3 weeks before you can get something back from them, you're in a tight spot. You're stressed out, and what do you usually do? You check your email, and you say, what was that thing we sent like 3 months ago? That's not a good decision, because that thing that you sent 3 months ago is probably not great. So with Lucid Press, you get what you need right at your fingertips. It's really easy to make any tweaks or customizations that you want. You can go back to doing the job that you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that sounds like a daily occurrence here. Go back to that previous
Good.
one.
Well, we need to get you guys a license, obviously. That's what this is all about. I know there's some people here that want to talk about other things, but we're trying to sell you hard on a business license.
Done. All right, so there's been some recent news involving you and investors. Give us a rundown of what happened.
I am so excited about this next phase of the Lucid Press journey. So Lucid Press started in 2014 as a division of Lucid Software, a company most people here, I would guess, and most people kind of in the tech space know about. And Lucid Press is this really cool technology that shared a lot of initial traits with Lucid Chart, the flagship product and first product of Lucid Software. You have a canvas and you have a tool set that allows you to manipulate things on that canvas and that kind of thing. As Lucid Press began to grow, and I joined in 2017 as the general manager, we saw that we had a different customer base, we saw that we had a different way of going to the market, and ultimately it made sense for us to reach our potential to become a separate independent company with a group of investors who are really excited to back us. And I'm looking out in the crowd because one of them is here, a partner and friend who I really love, Matt Marsh. He's looking around, not trying to avoid attention, but he was with Charles Thane Capital and our key partner in making this happen, so that Lucid Press now has the funding and the structure to go become the company we believe we can become, and it just makes sense to do that in our own lane.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to ask a little bit behind the scenes, boots on ground, of how these types of deals happen, right? Whether it's merger and acquisition, a spin out, an investment. Who courted who? So kind of high level, describe the process of doing what you guys did.
You know, it's funny because I mentioned I joined Lucid Software in 2017, and in the role of general manager, it was to run the business. It's a lot like being the CEO, honestly. And I found a slide deck that we created in 2018 to share with the executive team that was all the reasons why we thought maybe this thing would be best on its own. So the seeds were planted very early. The board initially said no. They said, we'd like to see if we can, maybe this stuff will fit together, and we love this product so much, we'd hate to have it outside of this umbrella, but we kept working on it. Excuse me. It's COVID, don't worry about it. No, just kidding, it's not fully vaxxed, healthy, safe. But what I was going to say is that we continue to talk about it, and we started to get some inbound interest from some really great potential partners, both financial and strategic. So financial groups are people that want to come in and invest a lot of money into your business and so that it can grow, and you still kind of operate with your brand and build the business that way. And the strategic people that were interested in this wanted to make us a part of their company. And so this was happening, all through last year, 2020, and we were talking with people about it. We didn't find quite the right fit. Of course, COVID was happening, so we were thinking about all the ways that impacted the business. And ultimately, we found the perfect partner. And that's really what made things come together. And that perfect partner was Charles Lane Capital. They're a group with roots here in Utah and also in Chicago. Matt, who I mentioned, who's here, had been at Sorensen for a long time before he ventured out with his partner Brian to start CTC. And really that, when you say who courted who, what's funny is we got introduced through a mutual friend. I hope everyone here has great text threads you can rely on with groups of friends that are doing really interesting things. That's where it happened, honestly. Some of the people from the text thread that I'm talking about are here in the audience today. A member of that group said, hey, I know what you're working on. I know some things that you're trying to do with Lucid Press, and I think CTC would be a perfect partner. So we kind of met and courted each other.
All right. And then the fun begins, right? You have to...
That's one way to describe it. It's a lot of work.
It is. Really quick, another 30,000 foot view. You've got spreadsheets, you've got term sheets, you've got phone calls and negotiations. How does that work?
Yeah, and it might be interesting for people to hear how it kind of works when you have an acquisition. Like, what are the phases of the process that you go through? And, it can be a little different in different cases, of course. But at a high level, you're talking with a lot of people. You're finding out if there's a mutual fit. You kind of, you sign non-disclosure agreements, and there's a first round of information that's passed out. And ultimately, if everything is looking like it's going to be a great fit, then you get a letter of intent. And that says, all right, we're now going to go to this next phase of doing a deep dive on the business, this diligence phase. So after you get you're connected with someone, you agree, we're going to really pursue this together, and you get that letter of intent signed. The diligence phase is super, super involved, where you look at every part of the business together. You pick up every rock, and as a person in my role, you have to answer a lot of questions. A friend of mine who does this for a living, running M&A processes, he told me it's going to be one of the worst times of my life, to just be ready for that. It was really, really busy. Fortunately, we had great partners that we were working with, so that helped, and it went smoothly. But you really have to be able to answer about every part of the business in that, and ultimately at the end of the diligence phase, you say, all right, here's the deal. It's done, and we tell it to the world, and that's where we're at now, weeks after that.
Yeah, well, Congratulations, and it's always good to be done with it.
Yeah.
And you can focus on...
It is.
It's kind of like getting open heart surgery, buying 5 used cars, and planning 3 weddings at the same time. You're just
while holding a couple of babies. That's what it felt like. Yeah.
It's not for the faint of heart, but okay, cool. And you probably could use Lucid Press for some of the presentations.
We did actually. We made a point of that at every turn to say this was actually created in Lucid Press. We thought that people would be excited by that. I don't know if they were, but we were excited to be doing that.
Yeah. Cool. All right, so folks that know you and those that don't, you're really good at marketing and passionate about it and everything that entails. So what is brand management?
That's what I told Garrett. That's why he has that impression. I've made sure that he's heard that. But I don't know if anybody else thinks that.
I think they do. But what is brand management? Why is it important?
Well, I think a brand ultimately is the essence of who you are. Some people say it's the promise that you keep, or it's what people say about you when you're not in the room. And so I think a brand is like essential to any business's success, is knowing what their brand is about and then having something that they actually use to make hard decisions. Like if you have a real brand, it guides all parts of your business. And so when you have that, you want to make sure that that's communicated at every touch point correctly. And that's what brand management is about. It's just saying, hey, this is the truth of us, translated into the language of our audience at every interaction point. And so, you know, what we do helps with a big part of that. We help scale design through organizations, and so we're talking about flyers and social media posts and postcards and signs and anything that you can create in the physical world. There's even more to a brand than that. I mean, your brand is also what people experience when they walk into a room with you and that kind of thing. And so we do hope to help with that big lane of design that is part of managing somebody's brand, and that's what we focus on.
Yeah, so you've been passionate about marketing and advertising and brand for quite some time, so I assume you've been paying attention to good brands and good marketing campaigns. What are some of your favorites, and how do you learn from them and apply those to your position?
Yeah, it's a really good question. You know, the things that I love about a brand are when you find out what's behind the things that you see, and it all suddenly makes sense. And a good example of that, a classic, you know, brand, of course, probably the first one a lot of people think about would be Nike. But what their brand is about is empowering elite performance. And then when you see that, you realize, oh, okay, that's what they're about. They're actually about performance all the way around, and that's, you know, just do it, and all of those things roll up into that, and you see that's a really cohesive brand system. But I think we have, you know, a lot of great brands here locally. I think about any brand where you feel something when you think of it, they're doing something right. So I don't know, I'd be curious to know from the audience, maybe when we do Q&A, what are some of the brands that you really feel something towards? So it's a good thing to think about, and why, and how the heck do you do that for your business, you know?
John Deere.
There you go, John Deere. You know what's actually funny? This is an aside, but the John Deere thing is one that I've spent a lot of time thinking about, because I was an advisor in the last gubernatorial campaign for Spencer Cox, and his colors echoed the John Deere colors. If you followed that, they were that green and the yellow, because he came from the country. He's a farmer from San Pete County. And so, you know, even that like kind of brand association made sense. It was different, and it was authentic and tied to who he is. So, you know, I think that John Deere brand resonates not just with you, but with a lot of people.
Yeah. So I'm assuming you get a lot of folks asking for advice, and you mentor folks, younger startups. And when should they be thinking about brand and the importance of it?
Well, I mean, because your brand is so tied to what you're all about, I don't think it's ever too early to be thinking about it. You know, now, like, there's branding activities that you probably don't need to think about. Like, there's some things, you know, that I would say you can hold on, and that is, you don't have to put up billboards everywhere. You know, you don't have to be thinking about all of these implementations of your brand right off the bat. But you should be thinking about, you know, what your business is about at its core. What are the promises you keep? What are the values you hold? We use a lot of the stuff from Patrick Lencioni, which I know people here have probably heard of a lot when we think about our business and how we organize ourselves. And he has this book called The Advantage, where he says, you know, the leadership teams of a company need to answer 6 core questions about their business to really have everybody on the same page. And, you know, part of that is, why are we doing what we're doing? How do we behave? But I would recommend, right from the start of your business, try to wrap your head around those things, and then think about what that translates into, like the visual language of design and all the other aspects of how a brand is carried out. But that core stuff, that's your business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so the difference between general manager and CEO, you're still new into it, but how is the transition going, and where are you kind of focused with your time and energy and efforts for the first year?
Yeah, appreciate it. Great question. So, fortunately, I'd started my own business before, an agency that I grew for 5 or 6 years, and so a lot of those things are similar to what I'm doing now. And again, the GM role was a lot of similar responsibilities. But I'm signing things all the time. That's what I realized. No one told me that it was just like DocuSign all day long. And it's like, okay, you know, we really got to do a lot of reading here and signing. So that's been something that's just taken a lot of time the past few weeks. But when I think about the role of the CEO, to me, it's 5 things that are super clear for me, and I think about them all the time and come back to them again and again. I think as a CEO, ultimately, you own the vision. That doesn't mean you're the only person who's responsible for creating the vision, but you have to make sure that a vision is very clearly articulated to the team. And honestly, we have some work to do, because when you're in the process of being acquired, it's hard to convey everything about the vision that you want to when you're figuring out exactly what the future looks like. So making sure that there's a clear vision. The values of the business, or the culture. I say, like, vision, culture, you got to own that. Like, ultimately, that's going to be the trajectory of, where your company goes. People, key hiring, I mean, honestly, that's what's going to, at the end of the day, determine how far we go, are the people that we have. And so I'm spending a lot of time, as much as maybe half of my time, thinking about the people we have and how to help them to be successful and how to get the right people join us on our team. Ultimately, as a CEO, you're responsible for results. The board is going to look to you and say, well, you can point down the line and show where something was broken, but it all rolls up to you to make sure that it works. And so, that it keeps you up at night, making sure that you're delivering on the results. And then there's some relationships that as the CEO, you really have to own. And you have to make sure those key relationships, whether it's with partners or potential, strategic partners down the road, that kind of thing, you've got to be there doing it. So, vision, culture, people, results, and key relationships, those are the things that I'm looking at all the time. And really, that was the same thing that I was focused on as GM.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, you're one of 11 kids, right?
Yeah, good memory. Yeah.
So I would assume that makes you a better CEO, because your survival instinct's a little bit better if you're one of 11, right?
Well, so I'm the youngest, and of 10 boys and 1 girl. So obviously my mom is a saint. She is the real MVP. And we grew up in Alaska, in what's called the bush of Alaska, for a fair amount of the time, for 9 years up there, where little villages where there's no roads in or out. So when it comes to survival, yeah, I have learned a thing or two. We had a lot of times without running water in freezing cold weather and that kind of thing. But what I really got from being in a big family is I fortunately had 10 really awesome examples of ways to go in life. And I've got these 10 great examples of people who have kind of like taken me under their wing and helped me see what they wish they'd known. And so, yeah, it's like an incredible unfair advantage that I just showed up in the world with, and I'm grateful for it every day.
Yeah. So if you can manage to live in Alaska without running water and 10 brothers, you can manage DocuSign.
I think so. Yeah. There, I was actually just going back and looking at some of there was all these stories that I remembered as a kid from being in Alaska, and my friends have challenged me to say, did that really happen? Come on. Because there was like a story where a polar bear knocked a window down of a library and got into the library and was chasing people down. And I told this story for years, but I did go find the article. Okay, so I'm just telling you, these things are now verified, and if anyone wants to talk Alaskan stories, I've confirmed that they're true.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah. All right, a little bit brass tacks on the operations of a SaaS company. Yeah. I get asked quite often to explain other people's business models, and a lot of the times it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
The business model that you guys follow and use as a SaaS company, how does that work? Again, kind of a summary of the whole thing.
Yeah, so people that are living and breathing this every day, what these metrics are. You're looking at, of course, your growth, and you're looking at what your annual recurring revenue is probably. You're looking at, how profitable you are. There's all these things that contribute to the value of the business. Maybe what your net revenue retention rate is. So when people sign up for your service, do they, over time, add more and more licenses or not, right? I mean, those are all kind of unsurprising things. But what I would say is, through this process, I had a great education in how you have to know these numbers cold. I mean, we talked to a lot of people. We had a lot of people reach out and share those with us. And you have to know the history, forwards and backwards, of all of these elements of your business. And so that would be the big encouragement I'd offer to anybody who's kind of getting your SaaS business started, that really, like, at the end of the day, you've got to be razor sharp on this stuff when it comes to raising more funding or having an acquisition. There's nowhere to hide. And if you're the CEO, really they expect you to know it. You got great partners. You got a financial partner that can help you. You got all kinds of other people on your team. But I would say, spend a lot of time living in those numbers, because they end up giving you both the confidence in those meetings that I'm talking about and the informed gut to know when you're talking about cross-functional things that could impact churn for your business, for example, how many people are dropping out. You got to know all the other elements of that. And boy, that sure came home to me during this process over the last year.
Yeah. So whether you're looking at spreadsheets or a dashboard or anything in between, what are some red flags for you now as CEO when these things start to pop up that are worrisome and you'll put some time and effort into?
Yeah, it's a really good question. We like to look at accounts on an individual level. There's a lot of things I see. Larissa, who's here from our team, she's one of our incredible customer success managers. They can see the canary in the coal mine well before a renewal is coming up, right? So they're looking at things to see how people are using the product, what their implementation has been like, and all these little steps along the way. And that's one of the greatest, if you kind of boil it down to core metrics, what is your usage like of your product? Are you really delivering the medicine? And so there's a ton of things. I mean, we have NPS scores, Net Promoter Scores, and all kinds of things that give us kind of guidance on how the business is doing. But at the end of the day, what I'm most interested in is how many people, we have millions of users all around the world now, fortunately, but how many people are we actually helping to do the thing that we promised that we would do, and how do we get that number higher? That's what I want to look at every day. And I think, great results, revenue, and retention and other things flow out of that.
Yeah. All right, so the word product has come up a few times. How do you and your team decide on the product to build next? And how long does it take on average from the light bulb above the head to the product being built and sold?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, we have incredibly talented professionals who guide our product and engineering organizations, and we'll continue to add outstanding talent there as we grow. So I lean heavily on them. First of all, as a CEO, another kind of thing that I live by is that when you hire really talented people, if you want them to do their best, you need to give them three things, in my view: love, support, and space. And space is the most important of the three. So I want to be clear that I don't think I need to be running every product decision because we're doing something wrong, if that's the case. And that's true for all the parts of our business. We hire really talented people and then trust them and empower them to do their jobs really well. But what happens is they gather feedback constantly. If you're in product, you are getting so many streams of information in. You're getting information from your current customers in both quantitative and qualitative. You're getting information from prospects. You're constantly talking to the sales team about why you're winning deals and why you're not, and what that means. You're hearing from the team who has certain insights. And I got to say, if you're a really great product leader, and I don't mean this in a negative sense, I mean in a positive sense, you've got to be an incredible politician. Because you have to help everyone understand that they're heard, and then you have to say, and hearing all of that, now this is what we're going to build next. And you're going to disappoint a lot of people, because resources are always finite. But you have to help people understand, remember, this is what we're going to. This is how we're going to win. In our case, this is how we're going to be the best design and brand templating platform in the world, and we have to check these boxes off to get there along the way. And I mean, that's kind of how it works. The product team goes hard, and I think another note that I'd make that I've heard from our best product leaders again and again is that customers are really good at identifying pain, but not best at delivering the solution. So they get all of this information in, and then they say, okay, this is what people are experiencing. Here's how we're going to address it. And I trust them and make sure we have the resources to support them to go build that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good feeling to have trust. All right, I have one, maybe two more questions, so those in the audience, get your questions ready. When a new president comes in or new governor, they have like a 100-day plan, right?
Yeah.
Do you follow that methodology?
Yeah, well, we did put together a 100-day plan, actually, for this transition. The first big part of it is sticking the landing. I mean, this is a huge undertaking to do. You think about like a really intertwined business unit, product, and all of that, and we have just pulled it completely out of Lucid Software. The entire team, the entire technology. So the first thing we're doing is sticking the landing. That's just, while we're taking great care of our customers, while we're making everything go smoothly, let's get every system set up to be running well. That's at the heart of it. The next thing we got to do is make sure that our team fills some of the gaps that we need, because we were relying on Lucid Software to cover some areas. So we now have a finance org, we now have a legal org, those were things that we had from Lucid Software, So to get those in place and get the right, complete holistic business organization is in place. And then we're gonna grow this thing like crazy. I mean, that's not a surprise. That's what the next step is how do we make sure that we're hitting the big goals that we believed in and that our investors put money in, as far as what the next few years of growth look like.
All right.
Yeah.
And what makes you the most excited with your new role, new company for the next year?
I have done entrepreneurial things my entire career, but I don't think of myself first as an entrepreneur. It's like, I guess I am because I keep doing entrepreneurial things. And the reason that I keep doing them is, at its core, it's so fun to imagine what can be and then go build it. And it's been difficult to get those train tracks out in front of us in the environment that we were in when we there was some question about what our structure was going to be, who our partner was going to be. So I am so excited to have all of that out of the way and now to go build the future that we believed in for quite some time with a great team. And another thing that I would add about being an entrepreneur that's super special is you get to choose the people that you do it with. And we have awesome people that we have been on this journey. They believed in it. They've come through this change. They're with us. And so, I think those are the two things, is the chance now to really go build what we've thought this could be all along, with great investors behind us, with capital to go pursue it, and with a team that we believed in all the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, those in the audience that have a question, I guess raise your hand. We have a microphone that'll be passed around. Don't be shy, come on. There it is. I always got to get the first one.
You mentioned culture a handful of times, which was phenomenal to hear. How do you take a culture and carve it out of a company? Or if you haven't, what's the playbook for doing that?
It's a great question. So I have a lot of thoughts on culture, and I have a lot to learn. A lot I want to learn about it all the time. I think we all have to be constantly learning about culture. But a few thoughts that are top of mind for me is, one, your culture is not actually what's on the wall or what you hand out to people when they show up. Culture is what they experience. And so, that's what I'm really interested in, is what is the actual culture that people are having. And so as we've made this transition, we've actually spent some time talking about it as a team. In fact, I asked every member of the team and had to track down their answers because I wanted to hear from every single person the answer to this question. And that is, when you think about the very best of the people that you work with, what are their characteristics and traits? Because that's actually what our core values are. That's what's made this thing work. And if you think about, and this can sound a little hard, but it's true, because not every culture is for everybody. I've also asked our leaders to say, when we've had people who've come and it's not been a good fit, why not? What was the reasoning behind that? And what we're really boiling that down to are core values. This is a little bit of thinking that builds on what the Lencioni does. Again, his books like 5 Dysfunctions of a Team and The Advantage are really good for this. But he talks about there's a difference between core values and, permission to play values, like the kind of values that everybody just has because they have a business. Like, you can say, you have your value is to take good care of your customers, but if you're not more committed to that than 99% of everybody else, that's just what everybody does, and it gets lost in this generic, sort of mumbo jumbo. So we try to stay away from talking about our values as these just basic, like, yeah, you have to have that. Those are table stakes sort of things. And we try to stay away from too many that are aspirational, that are like, well, it would sure be nice if we were that way, but we're really not. We have a little bit of aspiration for like, where do we need to move to the next level? But like, we have something special that's made us who we are. And some of those things at Lucid Press are, we're incredibly scrappy. We are a gritty bunch of people. We respect the individual. With everybody on our team, wherever they come from, whatever their background is, best ideas win with us. We respect the individual. And we've got 3 or 4 more that I would say we're talking about and getting ready to roll out to the team. And you mentioned this challenge of carving it out from another business. Lucid has a really well articulated set of values. Some of those are in our DNA and what have made us so successful. We're going to keep those. One of them that they talk about all the time, and I love for all of my time at Lucid, is teamwork over ego. That's the Lucid Software story. If I was to boil all of the values of Lucid Software down to one thing, if you look at Carl Sun, if you look at Ben Diltz, Dave Groh, the people that have been there from the beginning and built that, they believe in teamwork over ego. And I hope that's something that we'll embody with our business going forward too. I appreciate the question.
Back there. And then we'll come up here, and that'll be the end.
Hi, I'm Josh.
Hey.
I was struck by your describing your leaving Lucid, and I'm certain that there must have been times there where it felt like the entire thing was like the wheels were going to fall off. I always think of companies as these relationships between all of these different people, and you're just kind of trying to keep everybody in the same room together sometimes. Yeah. When things go south for you, whether that's like personal or your cap table is mad at you or the product sucks or you can't sell or whatever it is, and you have to go and interact with the people that you're responsible for, how do you you say own results, right? Yeah. And own the vision of the company. And how do you balance that with taking care of the people that like you're responsible for that are probably just as demoralized by all of this stuff as maybe you are? How do you manage those times when it's like you've got an organization and you need to make them work, but you need to also like take care of these people?
It is a great question. If you see me smiling and laughing, it's because you're hitting on something that's true and real. And I was looking at our partners as we navigated this. Like I said, it's a big, complex thing to take a business of our size and make it independent. And I was looking at my wife, who's here too, who was laughing about those moments when it got really tough. And so what do you do? Well, one thing is you understand that's part of leadership. Like leadership can be very lonely at times because you're carrying some of that burden. And I felt like, we needed to not take the entire team on every twist and turn of that ride. That's kind of your job as a leader, to process that and then be responsibly transparent with your team about where things are at. And at the end of the day, when things got really hard in figuring out how to do this process, it was the personal relationships that we'd built over time and deep trust on all sides that allowed us to figure out a way through all of this. It was, all right, let's get everybody together again. And frankly, in person is what we had to do. There was a lot done via Zoom because of everything we've all been going through. But it was showing up at people's houses and saying, hey, there's something we've got to solve. This one we should talk about in person. This is hard stuff. And so those are maybe not silver bullets, but that's what I can say as a leader. You got to know that's part of your job. That's what you're signing up for. And, forgive me for the tangent, but something that I think about all the time and that I really had to learn in my career is that being a leader also means that when you make hard decisions, you're going to disappoint people. You have to understand that and accept it, or else you're going to be a weak leader. And so, early in my career, I saw that I was really good about caring for people. I was empathetic, like that's just kind of how I'm wired. But I was not making hard decisions, even when they disappointed people at times. And I was blowing it because of that. And so I had to learn that, no, you don't have to be a jerk. That's not what that's about. You can be empathetic and caring, but you have to be willing to make hard decisions that disappoint people. And when you're talking about how things get structured in this kind of complexity, you know you're going to have to disappoint people at times, so you embrace that and you do it in the most graceful and dignified way that you can and say, all right, everybody, this is where we're at. Can we make it work? And that's kind of part of, I think, growing as a leader, is taking that on.
Great. Down here in front, just coming this way.
So a two-part question. The first part could be long, but just abbreviate it.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by your starting out in the bush with nothing around,
Yeah.
and going from the bush to being in the business corporate environment. And second part of the question is, now that you're in the business corporate environment, do sometimes you wish you could just go back to being in the bush?
Yeah, it's a great question. So of all things, my dad was a librarian, and that's what took our family up to Alaska. So I was actually born in Idaho, but he was librarian in these little places, and it was an awesome way to grow up. You know, I like to say that where I was growing up, it didn't matter where I was 10 minutes from nowhere. And that was pretty fun. That was great as a kid. There's such awesome opportunities here in Utah right now. There's nowhere else I'd rather be in the world, honestly, than where we are right now to build this business. So I'm super excited about that. And as far as wanting to go back to the bush, yeah, but just for some good fishing trips and that kind of thing, you know. Go back there, get rejuvenated and recharged. I've still got a brother up there, so I've got a home base when I need to get refreshed. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Cool. Owen Fuller, CEO of Lucid Press, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thanks everybody for coming. Appreciate it.